Hey guys, what's going on? Brandon here. Today I'm doing my review for Crime 101. And Crime 101 is about a thief played by Chris Hemsworth. He does heists, high stakes heists. And I guess he usually does them along the 101 freeway. So very simple for why the name is what it is, Crime 101. And this movie also stars Mark Ruffalo as the detective that is investigating these heists. And we get Halle Berry in here as well as an insurance broker who gets involved in all of this as well. Essentially, it tells the story of three different characters who have very significant roles in the movie until all of their kind of stories intersect together. In a way, and this movie is not as good as this, but in kind of a roundabout way, it is similar to like to like Pulp Fiction. This movie is not as good as Pulp Fiction, and this movie is set up differently than Pulp Fiction. It's not like it's Pulp Fiction, how it's like, spoiler, I guess, if you haven't seen Pulp Fiction somehow. But like Pulp Fiction is like shot out of sequence. This is not at all. But it does tell like three different stories, three different characters, and they all intersect kind of like in that movie. But just, very much shot in a different way. So yeah, and all of the actors do a fantastic job, and I think the writing for each of the different stories is written very well. And I think the action that this movie has, it doesn't have a ton of it, but when there is action, I think it's done very well. I think the more emotional sides of this movie is done very well. I think that this movie does everything it tries to do, and it does it very well. It doesn't do, I don't know if it does anything great though. And that's kind of where my conundrum is, because there's nothing like necessarily bad about this movie, but there's nothing like elite either, besides maybe like the acting. The acting is great. And that's not just the three actors that I mentioned that are great. Everyone in this movie is very, very good. But it's kind of like everything's good, but nothing's great except for, again, maybe the acting. I don't think the directing is great. I think it's good. I think it's very good. I don't think the writing is great. I think it's good. It's very good, again. And this movie makes you really care about Chris Hemsworth's character, and it really, all of the characters, all of them are flawed. All of them have their own kind of flaws and their own issues, and I can't really get into every like flaw that they have, obviously, because some of that would be spoilers. But it really makes you care about these characters. Personally, I think my favorite of the three storylines and the three characters is Chris Hemsworth's character. I think he does the best job, actually. Mark Ruffalo does great, and so does Halle Berry. But personally, the way his story is written, the way it's set up, the way he kind of evolves throughout the film, and there's a point that they make a point of, I don't know if this is really a spoiler, but like I don't want to say, they make a point of saying that, like he doesn't hurt people when he does his heist. They make it clear. And at the end of the movie, No spoilers. Again, I'm trying very hard not to spoil anything. But at the end of the movie, he has a decision to make. And, you know, the one, you know, either decision is a decision that could negatively affect him, but he has to make that decision as to what he should do to kind of, you know, keep his kind of moral compass, I guess you could say. And I think that they write this scene very well. I kind of called what was going to happen, but that doesn't mean that it's bad. It's just, this movie is kind of predictable in a lot of ways. I called what was going to happen in that final scene about an hour before it happened. In my head, I was thinking, okay, this is how I think this movie is going to end. And it pretty much does. So if that's a negative for you, if for you a predictable film is like a negative for you, then, you know, that's your opinion, I guess. It's just not a negative for me, because it was still, the scene still, it played out in kind of a different way than I thought it was going to. However, in that scene, the final scene, when I thought about it originally, like the hour before we got to that scene, you know, I thought it was going to go one way, and it goes differently, but it's still kind of the same ending. But also, like, when we got to that point, I was like, I pretty much, like, knew exactly, like, how it was going to go, beat for beat by that point. So the movie's very predictable. It's not a negative for me, personally, because as long as the movie is written well and the acting is done well and all of, and I enjoy all of those aspects, I don't have too big of an issue with me being able to predict something. As long as everything is well done and good throughout the film. And like I said, all of the actors do a fantastic job. Corey Hawkins is also in here. And I know I've seen, there's a woman in here who plays, like Chris Hemsworth's love interest. And I know I've seen her in something. And I didn't look it up before starting this, but I know for a fact I've seen her in something, but I just can't think of off the top of my head what it is, and I can't think of what her name is. But she does a fantastic job too, and so does Corey Hawkins, even though he kind of just, like, I mean, maybe this is a little bit, like, we get to a certain point in the film and he kind of just disappears from the film. And I don't completely understand it, because they never really explain why he's gone. He's just kind of, we see him in a few scenes. We see him in quite a few scenes in this film. And then at some point, he plays Mark Ruffalo's, like, partner. And at some point, he's just out of the film with very little to no explanation. I mean, you can kind of, like, infer why he's out of the film a little bit, but it's not explicitly said. And it does kind of feel weird that he's not there at all. I expected to see him again at some point. I didn't expect it to be right after the thing that this is his last scene. I didn't expect it to happen right after that, but I expected it at some point. So it was a little awkward that he was just never, like, he was never even mentioned again. That's the thing that was weird for me, or at least not that I had heard, unless I missed something. But I don't think I did. It's a little weird. But I think that's all I have to say. I'm giving this a solid, like, 8 out of 10. So if you like this video, please like, comment, subscribe, and peace out.